So now let's get into the juicy part. Let's talk about building. Let's build your physique out. So this is an extensive one. We're going to talk about your tracking system so you can remain accountable. We're going to talk about bodybuilding. We're talking about VO2 max and heart rate zones, how to maximize that. We're going to talk about esoteric and occult lifts. We're going to talk about hybrid training and hybrid athletes, endurance athletes, strength athletes, all that. We're also going to discuss the Soviet approach. Strap in. This is a good one. Now, again, we're going to discuss some very esoteric things, some things that are good for your health and wellness, but here's a medical disclaimer. Again, this is not just to protect me, it is to protect you. We are all different and may have different known or unknown underlying conditions. So the content on these slides is for educational purposes only and does not substitute professional medical advice. The information provided is to be used by users at their own risk. So the objective for this module is for you to learn how to efficiently track your lifts, how you will maximize each of the 3 mechanical phases of any exercise, and how to leverage the key differences between hypertrophy, strength, and mobility training. All this is covered in a free ebook I wrote in 2020. It's a beginner's guide to gymnastic strength training. If you've seen gymnasts, they're just absolutely jacked and they're very functional. So I actually enrolled in adult gymnastics classes in 2020 when I was living in Denver, Colorado. The gym was actually called 5280 Gymnastics because it's 5,280 feet above sea level, so a mile above sea level. And I learned how to backflip into a foam pit. I learned a bunch of really fun things for mobility, functionality, and strength. So I put all that into a 24-page ebook, which is absolutely available for free for you. And I wrote it in quarantine when I lived in Denver, and the principles therein helped me achieve my first ever handstand. And mastering your body through space is an essential life skill. See, I believe basic body weight mastery is a necessary prerequisite for efficient weight training. This is going to be a downloadable asset for you in this course, so be sure to download that and have that for your records. So any exercise can be broken down into these 3 phases. The concentric phase, which is when the muscle fibers contract. The shortening of muscle fibers increases the tension in the muscle. During a bicep curl, the concentric phase of the exercise is the curl itself. Then there's the eccentric phase, which is when the muscle fibers are lengthened. This phase is commonly referred to as the negative. Our muscles are strongest in the eccentric portion. If your objective is to build muscle, then you should focus more time on eccentrics. See, eccentric movements damage the muscle more than concentric movements. Then there's the isometric phase, which is when there's neither shortening nor lengthening of the muscle fibers, just a pause mid-movement. The tension that results from pausing mid-movement can increase your strength. Isometric holds are especially beneficial for your stabilizer muscles, which rarely get targeted. Now, a lot of us want to get just disrespectfully jacked, right? So if you want larger muscles more than anything, like bodybuilding, right? Then you will want to focus on lengthening the eccentric portion. So think of your muscle fibers as a rubber band. You will tear them more by lengthening the fibers rather than shortening them. Remember, these tears in the muscle fibers will be filled in when you consume protein, resulting in a larger muscle. During a bicep curl, the eccentric phase is when the weight is being lowered, that negative, right? That stretch is what you want. Spend more time in the stretch and then explode on the concentric and bring it in. And squeeze it when it's in there for that isometric benefit too. Now, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So let's talk about your workout log. For the first, I'd say 2 years of my lifting, I would just wing it. I would just go into the gym or my friends' basements and just wing it. I would just hit what I want to hit. But in the beginning, you need to see consistent progress, especially if you want to grow and you're a newbie, you want those newbie gains. So let's talk about your workout log. Again, if you don't measure it, it won't improve. See, these are examples of the exact workout templates I used in the past. The one on the left is the program my college roommates and I used. This is literally it. We printed this and taped it on our fridge. We would cycle between the 3 of us and we would be in and out in the gym in about an hour. The one on the right is the workout routine I would do when I was traveling. I didn't limit myself to whether or not I had gym access, so these are all body weight exercises. And if you like this format, I have it linked to this module so you can plug in with your specific exercises, or you can do this exact program too if you want. It's free for you. Now, I discovered this app when I started working in consulting my first year. It has absolutely changed the game. It's called the Strong app, and the logo is on the bottom right there. It's the blue dumbbell. Fun fact, they follow me on Instagram, which is fun. I don't have an affiliate or anything with them, but The Strong app is fantastic. It tracks the history of what your prior lifts are. So in the free version of the Strong app, you can have up to 3 templates, right? So it's perfect for push-pull legs. So you have all your push workouts saved and your pull and legs. And then you can see on the left, you can create your sets like this with your weight and your reps, and you can check it as you go. It has included rest times built in. You can also determine if a set is a warm-up set or if it's a drop set. You can also create supersets in there too. And it has all kinds of workouts, and it's divided by muscle group. So if you want to hit a chest exercise, you can hit chest and see all the options you have. You can also see it by equipment. If you only have dumbbells available, for instance, or if you want to do body weight stuff, this is an absolutely fantastic app. It does have some premium features if you want them, but the free version is absolutely comprehensive. It has everything I need. And if you have an Apple Watch like I used to, it has an integration with the Apple Watch, so you can just operate from your wrist too. What I really like about it is that you can put in rest times. So between sets, I want 2 minutes rest, and it will automatically alert you when it's time to jump back onto your set. What's really cool too, it has a graph, so you can see how much you've progressed on each lift. It tells you your PRs. So that's what's really important in seeing results, is to progressively overload. Even if it's just 2.5 pounds a week, you want to get stronger on each lift. Now let's talk about the concepts that lead to hypertrophy or muscle growth. Contrary to popular belief, it's also possible to experience hypertrophy in body weight training, not just weight training. Many people lift weights for aesthetic purposes only, and that's fine. Some people make careers out of it. Arnold Schwarzenegger is a household name now. Although athletes can bodybuild with both calisthenics or weights, it's definitely easier to do so with weights, because it's far easier to progress by adding weights to the bar rather than it is to progress to more aggressive movements like the handstand push-up. Most bodybuilders, however, are not the strongest lifters out there. We're going to discuss strength later. But these are the 3 concepts you absolutely must have in your program in order to create hypertrophy. 1 is compound exercises, which recruit multiple large muscle groups simultaneously, like your squat, your bench press, your deadlift. The second concept is time under tension. You want to maximize muscle damage. So remember the eccentric portion. You really want to spend some time under tension and really lengthen the eccentric portion of your lift. Then there's progressive overload, which is you want to get stronger. So you can either do this by adding more reps and volume, or you just add more weight. You have to see progress. If you're not growing, you're dying. Now, of course, building a lot of muscle has become very popular after the 70s in the golden era of bodybuilding. So here we have Mike Mentzer, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Steve Reeves, and here's an extremely rare picture of a bearded Frank Zane, who in my opinion is the GOAT. He's one of only 3 people to beat Arnold in the Olympia. And so I've considered these guys, and the last 3 honestly are who I consider to have the best physiques of all time. And Frank Zane's philosophy is to focus on those like silhouette muscles. So the shoulders, the forearms, the calves. It's if you see someone in silhouette, you can tell if he lifts by looking at those muscles. Fun fact, the ratio between your shoulders and your waist is that V shape is something that girls find extremely attractive. So you want to make sure you have a really tight waist and really wide shoulders. Now, the discipline bodybuilding has given us something extremely useful too, which is posing. See, these 8 mandatory poses are not random. So these poses, which you've seen, are not random. These are the 8 mandatory poses you must hit for the judges at a bodybuilding competition. Now, every kid out there is familiar with the first one, which is the double bicep, right? Every kid hits that pose. We all know that pose. But these poses are no accident, as they each are designed to show the optimal angle of certain muscle groups. You want to create an aesthetic physique. And what is aesthetics? It is a mixture of symmetry, size, and proportion. You should always track your progress in any discipline. But if you haven't carried this over into your bodybuilding routine, then you're missing out. So hit these poses and get pictures of them so you can track the growth of your muscles through time. These poses are perfect because you can see the entirety of that muscle and the symmetry and size of it as you progress. These are not random poses. You should know all 8 of these poses. You know what? I'm going to name them right now. So the first one is the front double bicep. The second one is the most muscular. The third one is the front lat spread. The fourth one is the side tricep. The bottom left is the back double bicep. The 6th one there is the abs and legs. The 7th one there is the back lat spread. And the 8th one there is the side chest. So those are the 8 mandatory bodybuilding poses. Yeah, it looks a bit silly, but this is literally ideal for tracking your muscle development. Also, if you're listening right now, I just want to give you the forbidden bodybuilding pose, which is the glute spread, of course. It's an instant DQ, but I can't get through that joke. But yeah. Now, when you start lifting, a lot of people get very familiar with the terms bulking and shredding. So, bulking refers to the act of putting on as much muscle as possible, knowing full well that it may include some fat. Now, there are clean bulks and dirty bulks. Dirty bulks refer to people eating anything if it fits your macros. That means eating pizza, soda, donuts, it doesn't matter as long as you're in a caloric surplus. A clean bulk refers to eating cleaner, more nutrient-rich foods while maintaining a caloric surplus. The staple bodybuilder diet on a clean bulk is chicken breast with broccoli. Now, shredding refers to losing fat. Shredding requires you to be in a caloric deficit. This can be met by either burning more calories or consuming less calories. It might seem impossible to both bulk and shred at the same time. That's why you'll constantly hear people talk about the bulking phase followed by a shredding phase. Like most people bulk up during the winter since their winter clothes do a good job of hiding the excess weight they put on, and then they shred during the summer just in time for the pools and beach. Now, there are myths and misconceptions about bulking and shredding. Jeff Cavaliere, AthleanX.com, on the right here, he's a leading figure in fitness and personal training. He was on the coaching staff for the New York Mets at one point, and he has trained many professional athletes, including Antonio Brown. He believes this constant cycle between bulking and shredding is not only unhealthy, but unnecessary. Cavaliere sets himself as an example, and he tells his clients that always being in shape year-round is the ideal. His YouTube channel, AthleanX, has over 4 million subscribers last time I checked. Jeff Cavaliere claims that although you do need to be in a caloric deficit to lose fat, that's a must, you do not need to be in a caloric surplus to gain muscle. Yeah, you heard that right. Of course, it's far easier to be in a caloric surplus, feeding your muscles, but it's not necessary. Cavaliere states that all is needed for muscle growth is a positive nitrogen balance. Now, there are a few ways to achieve a positive nitrogen balance. The first is to consume a lot of protein, typically 1 to 1.5 grams per 1 pound of body weight. The other way is to just not get stressed. I really love this approach. I don't do bulks or shreds myself. I take this year-long Fizeek approach from Jeff Cavaliere, and key for me is to constantly be getting stronger in the gym and remain in a caloric deficit. Now, in the cut module, you've learned that I'm in a caloric deficit by fasting. I've been intermittent fasting for 4 years. That's how I keep my calories reduced. But in the gym, I'm still progressively overloading. I'm getting stronger. Mateo this year is always stronger than the year before. So the effect that has is that I'm always shredding a little bit of fat, always, and I'm also gaining a little bit of muscle. But it seems like a small difference here and there, but it makes a huge difference down the road if you keep pressing that forward. Time is always going to expose you, so you might as well have it push you forward, make it be your ally, rather than fearing time as you get an inevitable negative consequence. So we talked about muscle growth or hypertrophy. Now let's discuss this aspect of training, which is strength. To effectively discuss strength training, we need to first understand muscle fiber types. Now, there are slow twitch muscle fibers, also known as type 1 muscle fibers, which support endurance movement, such as marathon running. During aerobic exercise, your body relies on oxygen to perform them. This includes cardiovascular conditioning, such as swimming and running. So these are slow twitch muscle fibers. Now, you also have fast twitch muscle fibers. These are also known as type 2 muscle fibers, which support explosive strength movements, such as sprinting or weightlifting. These are anaerobic exercises, and they require short bursts of energy and therefore are not dependent on oxygen for performance. Now, if you see the muscle fiber types, you see the more red ones that have more oxygen. They're deeper red, right? Those are the slow twitch muscle fibers for endurance, and the fast twitch are more pink. Now, I don't want to be controversial here or anything, but certain races of people have a different composition of muscle fiber types. So just explore what you have. I actually took a 23andMe exam and it tells me exactly that. It says I have more endurance type muscle fibers, but that is not your destiny. You can absolutely train your muscle fiber types to switch from one type of muscle fiber to the other. So if I started strength training a lot more and doing more explosive plyometric type exercises, then some of my slow twitch muscle fibers, my endurance muscle fibers, are literally going to transform into fast twitch explosive muscle fibers. So the composition of your muscle fibers switch. Now, another interesting thing here is that certain muscle groups of yours tend to be comprised more of fast twitch rather than slow twitch muscle fibers. So being able to train effectively, for instance, your triceps tend to be comprised of fast twitch muscle fibers. So if you really want to train them effectively, do a lot of very explosive exercises such as dips. Dips are fantastic for them. And calves, they're more endurance muscle fibers. So if you really want to hit them properly, they are already composed of mostly slow twitch muscle fibers. So you want to do a lot of volume reps, so not strength training for that. The strength component to an athlete is a major determinant of their athletic success. Strength is defined as one's ability to exert great force or power. An athlete is strong if they can bench press twice their body weight or perform handstand push-ups. Strength requires healthy muscles and tendons. Tendon strength is often overlooked in this aspect, and unfortunately some of the more common injuries among powerlifters are torn tendons. Strength training is the training discipline of pushing heavy loads, usually in the 1 to 5 rep range. This can be done with both weights or calisthenics. Now here's Eddie Hall deadlifting a world record of 1,100 pounds. And on the right is Thor Bjornsson, aka The Mountain, squatting 926 pounds. That's a little bit more than my current squat PR. Now these guys are the strongest people in the world. They are not bodybuilders because they don't really care that much about aesthetics. They just want to be really strong. Now in the last few decades, we've learned so much about hypertrophy training and strength training. There's been a recent surge in something known as hybrid training, and several hybrid athletes have become very popular and they've gone viral. One of which you definitely have heard of, which is David Goggins on the left here. There are a small minority of people who train for both endurance and strength. Nick Bare on the right, he's the CEO of Bare Performance Nutrition and has clearly shown that it is possible to take part in both worlds. Nick is a marathon runner, Ironman triathlete, and weightlifter. David Goggins on the left, which is an absolute G, and you should definitely read his book, Can't Hurt Me, which is, by the way, in the Plus Ultra library if you want to see. David Goggins is probably the most well-known hybrid athlete out there. This hybrid approach is not an easy training regime to adopt because it requires tremendous mental strength, and many of the things in one realm seem to contradict the things in the other realm. You just have to listen to your body. The thing that's very admirable for me is that these people are absolutely ready and versatile in any condition. Say the electrical grid goes down and you need to hunt for your food. These people can track a field animal and run it down to exhaustion. They can get it just like the old days. They can also lift the shit out of anything. They can also pull themselves up from a ledge. They're very strong people. They can muscle up. This is actually a very functional body. Now, to make this module as helpful and resourceful as possible, I want to talk about some esoteric lifts and occult training concepts that I've learned from buying a bunch of courses from people who actually have results, so that you can fast track your progress and focus on the things that actually give you results, things that actually move the needle. So about a year ago, I bought Grego Gallagher's Kinobody program, and I saw insane results after doing the first phase. So the specific program I bought was the Movie Star Body program, and it's 4 phases, each of 8 weeks. And after doing the first phase, so the first 8 weeks, I saw insane results in my physique, particularly my shoulders and my chest. It was crazy, and everyone was letting me know. So I knew I wasn't just seeing it myself, because one always sees the results first, but people haven't seen in a while. They were all commenting on it. And I want to tell you, this concept that he popularized, known as the reverse pyramid sets, is the game changer. And Greg is legit, by the way. He's absolutely natural. He's actually turned in his blood results and lab tests to Derek for More Plates, More Dates. Like, he's verified natural. His program has been around for a long time. He has an insane amount of testimonials. His program is really, really good. So one of the principles he has ingrained into his program are these reverse pyramid sets. So what is a reverse pyramid set? Well, basically it's the opposite of the traditional pyramid, which you first start with 8 to 10 reps and then you get heavier and then you end up with doing much less reps. But now with reverse pyramid sets, you actually start off with the heavier weight first. So I remember one of the things he has us do in phase 1 is inclined dumbbell bench press. And so I immediately just go for the 80 pounds, and I go for my 4 to 6 reps, it seems insane, right? But you are blasting your muscles. You're really exhausting your muscles. You're getting all the heavy effort out of the way. And rather than do a straight set where you hit that weight again, you actually drop the weight a little bit, and then you hit the fibers that are just exhausted, but you can still squeeze more volume in. So you drop the weight and you get those in, and then you drop the weight one more time for the next set and you just hit those again. It hits your muscles at every single level. So you get some strength training in and you get some hypertrophy in. It is absolutely fantastic. This whole concept of reverse pyramid sets is fantastic. He also includes rest pause sets, which I've never heard of before, but we do these for the dumbbell lat raises for the shoulders. My shoulders, again, they just pop now. So the pros of this is that it increases muscle activation. You get a bigger pump and it's time efficient. But the cons is that it's not really for beginners. There's a lot of fatigue involved, and you do these till failure. Like, they're very hard. Now, typically these are done at the end of your workout. And again, we spam lat raises. So this rest pause sets, it looks like this. So in Greg's case, the rest pause set is you do 12 reps of the lat raises with a weight you can do 12 times. And then you rest for 15 seconds. And then you hit 4 reps again with the same weight without dropping it. Then you rest 15 seconds and then you do that again. So you do 4 additional sets of 4 reps. So you have 16 of those additional reps plus the 12. So you have 26 reps that you're doing with the weight without dropping it. And the pump you get is unreal. And by the way, you do that whole thing 5 times. Now, a concept that's probably familiar to most of you are drop sets and supersets, which are tools that are absolutely fantastic for really hitting your muscle in ways that a straight set wouldn't. So a drop set is you decrease the weight each time. For instance, something I would do with my roommates is we would do bicep curls with the cables and we would have a drop set partner. So you would just rep out your bicep curls on the cable, and as soon as you can't get another rep in, your partner, he takes the pin and he drops the weight and then you just hit it again. So there's no rest. So you do these drop sets with 0 rest. It's different from the reverse pyramid set because you're actually getting some rest in the reverse pyramid training. This is just an immediate 1 set. Within 1 set, these are drop sets. Now, supersets is a bit different. You do 1 exercise and then you immediately do another exercise without rest. Now, there's different ways to do supersets. There's different types of supersets. For instance, one of the most popular ones and the ones I like a lot are antagonistic muscles or opposite muscles supersets. So for instance, you hit bench press, for instance, and then you go ahead and do the T-bar row. So you hit your chest and then your back. So you can feel the blood flow between them, or you can do skull crushers followed by dumbbell bicep curls, right? So you can have the antagonistic muscle in your arm, your bicep and your tricep, they're antagonistic to each other. You can feel the blood flow go between. A different type of superset you could do are compound and isolation supersets. You know, for instance, you can start off with the chin up, really pump your biceps and your back, and then you superset that with a strict dumbbell bicep curl for the isolation. You could also superset with upper and lower body. You can do squats followed by bench press, you know, really get out of the muscle group you just trained, but you want your heart rate up, so you do the superset. Now let's get into the more esoteric lifts. Ben Patrick, aka the knees over toes guy, has really popularized the functionality movements and getting into specific movements that really target and lengthen your tendons and certain muscles, stabilize your muscles so that you can actually be super efficient and super safe when you're walking around the world. Because let's be honest, a lot of traditional lifts are very one-dimensional. They're very unilateral. There's not much explosiveness, rotation. So when in the real world, you get someone who's very jacked, but not really mobile or functional. Now, right in the middle there is the Jefferson curl. And it's amazing for lengthening the spine and the erectors and strengthening them too. It's not recommended for everybody. Train carefully, be smart. There's pistol squat. There on the bottom right, it's a knees over toes guy. You can do a Turkish get up with a kettlebell. Kettlebells are actually amazing for functional fitness. There's actually a guy from Soviet Russia. His name is Pavel Satsulin, and he has a bunch of content online about how the Soviets love to train with their kettlebells. And on the top left, you have the reverse hyperextension machine, which is really great for, again, strengthening the lower back, getting your glutes right. So these are more esoteric lifts, but it's very crucial to include this type of accessory work because, again, traditional lifting is very one-dimensional. Now, let's talk about what the Soviets did, because the Soviets won a ton of gold medals during a short period of time. And during that time, the Americans were really struggling to understand how their training methods were so different. What were they doing? So the Soviet approach is this. They used a system known as periodization. They rarely tested their 1 rep max, and most of their training was in the 65 to 80% 1 rep range. And this book on the right, The Secrets of Soviet Sports Fitness and Training by Dr. Michael Yessis, he's an American who actually studied how the Soviets trained, and he popularized certain terms that we use today, like plyometric exercise, for instance. That entire book I read and is in the library too. If you want to check out Soviet lifting secrets, that is in the Plus Ultra library. Now, let's talk about your heart and cardiovascular training. So these pictures are from my first and only Ironman triathlon event in October 2021 in Tempe, Arizona. Endurance athletes indulge in long distance events where the heart rate remains elevated for prolonged periods of time. Although it is a generalization, it is safe to say that most endurance athletes tend to have a harder time to build muscle than strength athletes. A marathon runner tends to be leaner than a sprinter. A triathlete tends to be leaner than a powerlifter. Now let's explore the reasons why. Well, one of the factors is that they're burning way more calories, right? They tend to be living in a state of extreme caloric deficit. But there's a bunch of benefits that do come with being an endurance athlete, one of which is the VO2 max. VO2 max measures the maximum amount of oxygen available to a person when performing exercise. Professional athletes naturally have a higher VO2 max than the average person. But is it possible to increase your VO2 max? Absolutely. Here are several charts so you can see where your cardiovascular fitness currently is and how it compares to pro athletes and people in your age group. But certain tools like the Fitbit or an Apple Watch, they can tell you what your VO2 max is. Now, something a bit more actionable and helpful is your heart rate, your resting heart rate in particular. When you're at rest, try to measure your heart rate so that you can see how it compares to those of athletes. One of my best friends played lacrosse in college, and his resting heart rate is in the 30s. It's outstanding, this kid. What that means is that his heart doesn't work that hard all day. It takes a lot of amount of effort for his heart rate to increase because he's so athletic. Whereas if you get an obese woman who walks with duck feet, right, she struggles to even stand up. And so her resting heart rate could be really high. It could be in the 70s or 60s, you know, and she's not doing anything. Now, to know your anaerobic training zone or your heart rate zones when you're doing exercise, when you're doing nothing or almost nothing, that's known as zone 1, and then it decreases up to zone 5. And to know what your zone 5 or like the healthy range of your max heart rate should be, take your age and subtract that from 220. So for instance, me, I'm 27. So 220 minus 27 is 193. So if my heart rate is around 193, I know I'm really pushing my heart rate to its extreme. Now, there's this one specific measurement that has gained a lot of popularity in the recent years, which is heart rate variability. HRV is actually more useful to know than just your resting heart rate because it gives you more information, because your HRV is a new and growing field of health research, because your HRV assesses the changes in time between successive heartbeats, the interbeat intervals. Heart rate monitors can measure HRV and compare it with those of your age and see physiological aging, sleep deprivation, mental stress, and other factors. So if you know your HRV, compare it to these charts here and see if you have a healthy HRV. If not, I highly suggest you get a heart rate monitor or do some sort of test so you can see where your HRV is. Now, to cap off the cardiovascular training, let me emphasize the difference between HIIT and LISS. HIIT, aka high intensity interval training, is a cardio technique used to maximize fat burn while also minimizing muscle loss. HIIT workouts are divided into two sections, work and rest. During the work portion, the athlete gives 100% of their expenditure. During the rest portion, the athlete actively rests, usually by walking. These short bursts are extreme and should be limited to 30 to 90 seconds. HIIT workouts are significantly shorter than LISS, aka low intensity steady state cardio, and it's designed for strength athletes rather than endurance athletes. An example of this is plyometrics and sprints. On the left here is this program known as Sprint 8, which is absolutely brutal. I've been doing this for a few months and it's been kicking my ass. It's fantastic. So you warm up 4 minutes before and you do a cool down later also for 4 minutes. And then you do all out sprints for 30 seconds. Just all out sprints. 100% effort. And then you take a minute and a half or 90 seconds of just walking. So for me, I do it on a hill. So I sprint up the hill because the hill by my house, it takes me about 30 seconds to climb full sprint. So I sprint all the way up the hill and then I take the 90 seconds to walk back down. And then I do all that 8 times. So you do 8 sprints and 8 cool down walks. It is absolutely brutal and it burns a shit ton of fat while keeping your muscle mass intact for the most part. Now let's compare that with LISS, which is low intensity steady state cardio. It's very popular. Jogging, for instance, took the US by storm in the 1960s and it remains a strong part of the American identity. Across any city or small town, you will find joggers taking part in LISS. Walking is goated though. For the past 2 years, I walk every single day after eating. I always walk. Greg O'Gallagher has even incorporated into his program, and he says you have to have at least 10,000 steps per day. See, we used to walk all the time, like not even thinking about it. And as I spend more time in Europe, I've been walking a lot more. A, it's such a great way to digest your food. And B, you're actively burning calories and you're not even thinking about it. You're getting sunlight in your face. You're seeing people. It's really good for those health reasons too. But from a LISS perspective, you are actively burning calories. It might not be as intense as a HIIT session, of course, but you're still walking. You're still burning calories. So it's very, very healthy. Now, I want you all to be as functional as possible, so let's discuss mobility and stability. This information here on the slide absolutely changed my understanding of human physiology. You might notice that your joints are stacked on top of each other in an alternating pattern of stability joints and mobility joints. An imbalance in one of these joints can cause a disruption along the kinetic chain, which leads to a ripple effect of issues. So I'm going to repeat that again. Your joints are alternating between mobile joints and stable joints. So let's start from the ground up. Your foot is stable, but your ankle is mobile. Then your knee is stable, but your hip is mobile, and so on and so forth. Mobility is the ability to move joints through their complete range of motion. Joints are the areas where two bones connect. There are joints designed to support mobility and others that better support stability. In 2020, I wrote an ebook on gymnastic strength training, which is a training regimen I did during quarantine. It taught me how to handstand, it taught me how to backflip. But these GST programs are designed to help athletes achieve a healthy balance of mobility and stability. Athletes must avoid staying in overstretched positions for too long, as this may compromise the joint by weakening the surrounding tendons and ligaments. And to combat this, GST uses strength drills in the new range of motion that the athlete just entered. So I cover how to actually strengthen your joints and become more mobile in that GST ebook, which is free to all of you. Flexibility is something separate. Flexibility is the ability to lengthen muscles and connective tissue. As children, we were born with flexibility. But as we grow older and adopt more sedentary lives, we lose our flexibility. Flexibility is required to enter a variety of positions. One way to improve flexibility is via stretching and massaging. Stretching stimulates the production of tissue and bone lubricants, aka joint synovial fluid, and it pulls apart the knots in our muscles. These knots prevent parallel muscle fibers from smoothly gliding past each other. Knots can be released directly by massaging their trigger points in the muscle fascia. Muscles can be stretched up to 150% of their resting length before tearing. Therefore, in most cases, our flexibility is not limited by our muscles, but rather by our muscle fascia. So muscle fascia is like this clear bag that wraps around each muscle group, keeping it separate, and those can harden. So you need to stretch those. So if you ever bought a cut of meat, it's that like thin film that covers the muscle. That's muscle fascia. So you need to be able to stretch those. Your muscles are stretchy in and of itself, but you need to stretch your fascia. So if you see the cups up there, the suction cups, that is me actually. That was in Hawaii, and I was doing that, and I had crazy knots in my back. And doing this actually was extremely helpful. I finally loosened a big knot I had in my neck and upper traps, and I highly suggest you guys explore that if you can. By now, you should have an accountability partner. But I guarantee if you've been lifting by yourself, you could definitely see more results if you have an accountability partner for your lifts. Simply having a workout partner has exponentially increased muscle mass on me. See, we tend to be lenient on ourselves, but having someone external to you, it makes that impossible. So Arnold Schwarzenegger had Frank Columbu, right? They had each other. And when I lived in Hawaii, there's my friend there, Taylor, who actually qualified for the Ironman World Championships in Kona. He was training for the Ironman, and I was training for my first ever Ironman, which you just saw. And we were both living on Oahu, and I was living in Kailua on the east coast of Oahu. And there's this island maybe a quarter mile off the coast. And I was talking to him, and I was like, hey, we should swim there. And we did. So we swam quarter mile out, quarter mile back, and this is a picture of us on that island. We had someone follow us on a stand-up paddleboard, and they brought a phone and they took a picture. But we swam to that island. That island is known as the Papuia Island or Flat Island. And if you actually want to hear more about this story and how you can prepare for a triathlon or a marathon and any one of your endurance events, check out episode 10 of the Plus Ultra podcast, where we go in depth on our time together in Oahu and what happened during Taylor's race day. That third picture there, that's my best friend Mikey. We just finished the Dewey Beach Triathlon. And the last picture there, that's my buddy Parsa. We both went to Virginia Tech together for college, and that's us at North Cascades National Park. Always important to get your posing in, right? Now listen, I know a lot of us like to chirp CrossFit and CrossFitters for many things, particularly those butterfly pull-ups. But what we have to concede is that they have an incredible sense of community in their gyms. Community and group classes, group fitness, it makes lifting fun and actually gives you a competitive edge rather than just working out by yourself or just one other person. Bouldering, BJJ, cycling, yoga, anything involved with a group, like a group fitness classes, makes you more likely to be consistent. See, we evolved in tribes, in groups, like we are social creatures. And if you're not getting your social reps in consistently, I highly suggest you to sign up for a group-oriented physical endeavor. You will all push each other. Now let's discuss your homework for this module. So You're going to upload a screenshot of your workout routine to the Discord. You get bonus points if you use the Strong app. That's it. It's really simple. Physical mastery is important. That's why you're listening to this. That's why you're here. So let's see what it is you do for your physique, for your physical health. What is it you do? Let the group know. And you know what's actually cool? You probably might meet someone who does the same thing as you, someone with like physical interests. So if you like to do bouldering, you might meet someone who does bouldering. You might meet someone who does jujitsu. You might learn that someone else likes to do the same thing as you. So post what your workout routine is. Again, you have access to the workout template I had in college, the Excel template, and make sure to create a copy and you can put in your workout routine there too. Or bonus points if you use the Strong app. And I'll see you guys in the next one.